All right. Good evening, everybody. Oh, I don't know if it's on. Am I on? Okay. Excuse me. It is now 6 o'clock. So we're going to start our meeting tonight. First, I just want to thank everybody here in the room for coming to our meeting. My name is Kathleen Sloan. I'm a senior siting analyst with the Department of Energy, the Oregon Department of Energy. The first thing I wanted to do was just go over a couple of overview slides, but first I wanted to do introduction. So I'm Kathleen Sloan, siting analyst. To my right is Todd Cornett. He is the secretary for the Energy Facility Siting Council. He's also the siting division manager. And Nancy Hatch is our administrative assistant, who is our technical whiz for all things setting this up for our meeting. So thank you, Nancy. I have Amrit is in the back. She is one of our new members of staff, and she is a analyst as well. And then we have one council member from the Energy Facility Siting Council that decided to attend this meeting in person. I'm going to introduce her, and that is Ann Byer, council member Ann Byer. So thank you, Ann, for being here. And that is it for the Department of Energy side. I'm going to turn it over to the applicant team to introduce themselves.
I'm Matt Hazard with IPA Power. I'm the project manager for Summit.
Hi, folks. Sam Littlefield. I'm Executive Vice President of Development for IPA Power. I oversee our project development pipeline, and Matt is on my team. We ultimately have 28 project developers, land agents, and government regulatory affairs personnel that help us see through these complex but ultimately important projects. So thank you very much for being here.
Hello, my name is Aftab Jain. You can call me AJ. I work with Tetra Tech Environmental Consulting, and I'm the project manager on the environmental consulting side that helps write the application.
And hi there, my name is John Vanderzee. I represent IPA with kind of permitting management, environmental affairs, some of the study work that goes into the application for a site certificate, and just helping to manage kind of the complex permitting process.
Okay, thank you. Can you go to the next slide, Nancy? So we did our introductions. I'm going to do a little bit of an overview of the meeting itself and the flow of the meeting. I will also present on the siting process for the state, the Department of Energy siting process. And then I will turn it over to the applicant, who will present on their proposed project, which is the Summit Ridge Renewable Energy Facility. So this is a notice of intent that they've submitted with the department. It's beginning a whole process to apply for a site certificate. And then we try to keep that relatively brief, my presentation and their presentation, so that we can get to the public comment period in the meeting, which is the purpose of us having this meeting, is to provide information and allow the public opportunity to ask questions, make comments, and I'll talk more about the comment period in a minute. And next slide. And I guess I would just say we ask that you hold your comments and questions until we get to the comment period. Okay. So this is an informational meeting. It is for the purpose of informing the public about this notice of intent to apply for a site certificate for this new proposed facility. We call it an NOI for short, so if I switch to acronyms, that's what I'm talking about. I'll try not to do that. It's important because of the site that it be clear that this is not a contested case hearing. The participation in this meeting is not required to preserve issues in a contested case that comes later on in the application process. And like I said, we're asking that you hold questions and comments till we open up the comment period at the end of the presentation. And we just ask that people be respectful. Everybody's trying to do their jobs, and we just ask that people not be disruptive or rude in our meeting. Okay, next slide. So just wanted to clarify what this meeting is for and what this meeting is not. This is the public information meeting on the notice of intent to apply for a site certificate for a facility called the Summit Ridge Renewable Energy Facility. It is not about the Summit Ridge Wind Farm project. And the notice of intent is really the first step in the FSEC review process. And I'll say FSEC, that is an acronym for the Energy Facility Siting Council. They're the entity that has to review and approve a site certificate from the state for an energy facility that falls under their jurisdiction. And the applicant team, the team is with Summit Ridge Wind LLC and APA Power. So just a really quick overview about the Summit Ridge Wind Farm, which many of you are familiar with. The certificate holder did submit an application to terminate that site certificate on March 8th. A public notice on that request, or the application to terminate, was issued on the 13th of March. That public comment period closed on April 1st, so it is closed, and it will go to council for a possible decision at the April FSEC meeting to be held on April 19th. And I believe that's in Salem. It's in Salem. So you can participate remotely if you don't want to drive to Salem if you're interested. Okay, next slide. Is there something I missed? Oh, okay. All right. So back to us and why we're here. A little bit about the Energy Facility Siting Program. So we oversee the review, decision-making, compliance for large-scale energy facilities and infrastructure in Oregon. The Energy Facility Siting Council is the body that actually makes the decision on an application. It is a 7-member board council. They're appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Oregon State Senate, and they serve terms. The Oregon Department of Energy staff, who we work in support of the FSEC, and we help do the technical and environmental review and document prep that goes into all of these applications, all the review process that we have to go through in order to make sure that our standards are met. So basically, in concept, we are a consolidated review process. So it consolidates local government review, other state agencies within the state that might have a role in a resource. And the purpose of that is to eliminate duplication, speed things up, make it a little more streamlined for both review decisions, if it goes through judicial review. We review the compliance aspects, any applicable council standard, applicable laws and rules that we have to consider. Our process also has built into it a public participation process. It's very important to our council and our process that the public be allowed to participate and be provided information and opportunities to provide comments. And it happens at several stages in our process. And I'll go over that in a little bit. And then we also coordinate what we call reviewing agencies, which are those other entities within the state or maybe a local government. We have special advisory groups, which are the local counties that may have county jurisdiction in the area. And we also consult with tribal governments, coordinate with them on comments that they might have on our review. Next slide. Okay. So what is an FSEC jurisdictional facility? There's several definitions. The one that this proposed facility really meets is that it is an electrical power generating plant with a capacity of more than 50 megawatts of power proposed for a wind facility. The applicant is proposing an estimated peak generating capacity of 201 megawatts or an average generating capacity of 67 megawatts from the facility from wind, and therefore it is an FSEC jurisdictional facility under this Oregon statute 469, 300, subpart 11, subpart 8, subpart J. All right. So when a proposed facility meets that definition as an FSEC jurisdictional energy facility, the applicant must obtain a site certificate from the Energy Facility Siting Council before it can construct or operate that facility. And to obtain that site certificate, the applicant must demonstrate that the proposed facility meets the standards, we're a standards-based process, and I'll have a slide on that in a minute, set by council in Chapter 345 of the OARs, the Oregon Administrative Rules, and other applicable Oregon statutes and land use planning goals. And as I said, because we as staff serve as support of council, we will conduct a lot of the technical review of the information that's submitted by the applicant as part of their preliminary application. At this point, like I said, we're at a notice of intent stage. So we're step one, they've submitted a notice of their intent to apply for a site certificate. So we're really at that first step. Next slide. So this is my favorite slide because we can show kind of at a glance the whole process in one slide. So the red box is where we are. As I stated, we're at the notice of intent stage. There are 7 major steps in this process that goes all the way to a final order and a site certificate at the end. There's a couple of things I want to cover on here. The notice of intent is submitted by the applicant. The department issues a public notice and it opens up that comment period. The public comment period is open and it closes on May 3rd. And then we hold an information meeting. And the whole purpose of that is, in all of these green boxes, is that there's opportunities for public participation. And then we are also coordinating at this point with those reviewing agencies that I talked about the proposed facility, about the notice of intent. And all of that information will get summarized in what Odo prepares, which is the next step, which is the project order. And the project order is something I will prepare as the siting analyst and gets reviewed and approved through our department. And we prepare that project order for the purposes of giving it back to the applicant. And that project order will contain really specific information about what needs to be included in their preliminary application. So the applicant will be working on the materials for their preliminary application, and they will submit a preliminary application should they choose to, based upon what they're required to submit, and it will be in the project order. And that project order is underway, and it will be issued in the middle of June is the deadline to issue that to the applicant. And then starts the application process. So the first step is a preliminary application. The applicant submits to the department a preliminary application with all of the required exhibits that cover all of the 16 standards that we have. And we as a department have to review that for completeness. It has to have sufficient and adequate information for council to really reach a conclusion on whether or not a standard is met. We also issue another public notice that says we've received a preliminary application. It gets updated on the webpage. We will also hold an informational meeting then and open it up for comment. And then we go back to those reviewing agencies and coordinate. Pardon? No comment. Oh, no comment? Okay, I'm sorry. Public notice information meeting, not on the preliminary. Okay. And then the agency coordination is ongoing throughout. So we're going to consult, once we've deemed it complete, that's what we call an ASC. It's the full complete application, and we can move forward with drafting the draft proposed order, which is the next step. So the department will prepare a draft proposed order. Once it's issued, we issue notice, we post it on the public website, we have a public hearing. The public hearing will be an opportunity for the public to participate and make comments on the record for the application. And that's important to know because it ties to the contested case. So in order to participate in a contested case, you need to make comments at the draft proposed order public hearing stage before that public comment period closes on the draft proposed order. Once we're done with that, we take all of those comments and we incorporate that information. We may make revisions and we issue what is called a proposed order. Both times council will review. We'll take the draft proposed order for council review. We'll make edits, changes, revisions as recommended by council or in response to comments, and we'll issue a proposed order. That proposed order will be issued by the department along with another public notice. It is not open for public comment at this time, but that notice will also include the notice of contested case. So it's your opportunity at that point to request a contested case. Once the proposed order is issued, that notice goes out, that notice on the contested case goes out. You can ask to participate in that contested case. And then at the very end is the final order, final decision by the Energy Facility Siting Council. So council is involved in all of these stages, but the decision is ultimately theirs, and they make that decision on whether to issue, deny, or, you know, I don't know what the other issue options would be. Amend. Okay. They'll approve a final order. We will issue that final order. The chair will then sign a site certificate and the site certificate will be granted. I know you have a question.
We can go back to this later on.
We can come back to this slide when we open Q&A. Okay. So next slide. So I did talk a little bit about reviewing agencies and special advisory groups and their role. I think that the important thing to realize is, you know, the special advisory group for this facility is Wasco County because they are the local government. And they've been appointed as the special advisory group. The other reviewing agencies also have the opportunity to make recommendations. One of the key things that we look for is the description of the analysis area, what areas need to be included in the application review. And part of that is to identify the studies that may need to be conducted, any local ordinances or local government and other administrative rules that might need to be considered in the application and included, and also the identification of any required permits that might be required of the applicant in order to move forward with the facility. So I mentioned that we are a standards-based process, and this slide shows our 16 siting standards. It is the burden of proof of the applicant to demonstrate that on the record they can meet each standard. It is the department's role to evaluate that evidence because we're an evidentiary process and to consider all the comments received and determine whether or not the applicant has demonstrated that they can meet that standard. And then we make those recommendations to the FSEC, the council, who will evaluate all that in making their decision. And because we are at the notice of intent phase, we are seeking any type of comment that anyone wants to revise or provide. But it's important if you do want to participate and comment in our process, that comments, realize we are a standards-based process. These standards apply to facilities. We have more literature on the table over there if you want to learn more about these standards. But these are the things that council has to consider with each of these standards when they consider whether or not to issue or deny or remand back an application for a site certificate. Okay. And in the notice of intent, we have mandatory study area distances that tie to these standards. And one of the things that we're consulting on is whether these need to be made bigger, smaller, based upon potential resources or concerns that reviewing agencies or the public may have, or our special advisory group. So each standard has its own kind of extent of what that study area is. This is for what had to be included in the notice of intent. In the project order, these may change. They might get bigger, they might get smaller based upon available information. But it just gives you an overview of kind of like how we look at the site boundary, the resources and standards that we consider around that site boundary as we ask the applicant to prepare information to submit in their preliminary application. Okay, next slide. So as I noted before, the state siting process is consolidated review that pulls most permits, standards, and requirements from local governments and state agencies into one process. And so for land use, the applicant has the option to have the land use review either be conducted by the local government, which would be Wasco County, or to have consolidated into our state review. And the notice of intent, the applicant has indicated they want to consolidate it within the state review. At the time they submit their application, they have to commit. They can pick one or the other, but they can't change it once they've picked it in the application. And the land, just as a consideration for this one, the land within the proposed site boundary is all zoned A1 EFU land. It's non-irrigated and is currently used for growing winter wheat and grazing, just if people were interested. Okay, next step, next slide. So really quickly, and then I'm going to turn it over to the applicant team. The notice of intent is applying for a new site certificate, for a new proposed facility. It is going to have a 201 megawatt nameplate capacity at the point of interconnection, which is where it connects with the transmission line. And it's going to be sited on approximately 4,061 acres here in Wasco County. It will have a wind generating component. It will also have a solar generating component. And the solar array will be approximately 274 acres within a 474 acre fence solar area. They're proposing approximately 32 wind turbines with a maximum blade tip height of 648 feet. Next slide. There are also related or supporting facilities that are proposed in the notice of intent. Includes a battery storage, what we call a BESS, would occupy up to 10 acres and it would store up to 201 megawatts of energy. There are other facility components such as a switching station, a collector step-up substation. I pointed out the point of interconnect is intended or proposed to be with the Bonneville Power Boyd Ridge Switchyard. There will be above and below ground 34.5 kilovolt collection system. There will be a 10,000 square foot O&M building and approximately 8 miles of 230 kV overhead transmission line and some new access roads, approximately 10.2, some road improvements of approximately 13 miles, another set of staging areas and temporary batch plant. Those staging areas are primarily for construction purposes. And I believe that is my last slide, and I am going to turn it over to the applicant team to present more on the actual proposed facility. And then we will, when they're done, we'll go right into public comment. Do you have their slides? Okay. It's all you.
Okay, just to be clear, you're going to double back to the public comment slide that preceded this?
Yeah,
Okay, thank
yeah.
you. Thanks again, folks. Again, Sam Littlefield, and I head up the development team at IPA Power. IPA Power is what in the industry is called a independent power producer, which means that we originate or initiate, develop, build, own, and operate renewable generation and battery storage facilities. IPA Power was founded in 2017 under a different name. It was acquired by Blackstone, one of the largest asset owners across real estate, energy, and other industries globally in 2020. And we have been developing utility scale, again, battery storage, wind and solar energy facilities and hybridizations of those different technologies across North America since that time. We're currently 114 people strong. Our headquarters are in Austin, Texas. And I'm based in Portland. Matt, who I'll turn it over to in a minute, is based in Idaho. But our sort of majority headcount sits in Austin. IPA is a very credible developer, owner, and operator of these types of facilities. Most of our team came from other independent power producers and have been working in this space for 20 plus years. We're currently operating 150 megawatts in Texas. We're under construction on another 150 megawatts in Texas, 100 megawatts in Los Angeles and California. And then we just achieved notice to proceed, meaning we've just signed our construction contracts and have sent some large checks out, and we'll be imminently starting construction on a 150 megawatt battery storage facility in Kuna, Idaho, outside of Boise. And we have a lot on the way. We have roughly 2 gigawatts, so 2,000 megawatts of what we call contracted backlog, meaning projects that have achieved a power purchase agreement with an ultimate buyer, and therefore are in the late stages of development and will be entering construction and operations over the next 2 years. We're operating our development business across 16 states, all major power markets in the U.S. And for a relatively young company, again, only having been initially founded in 2017 and then acquired by Blackstone in 2020, are moving quite well along. Matt's going to talk about the project in detail. Kate, I think, did a good job of maybe heading off some confusion around why we're here today for a notice of intent for a project that many of you are familiar with and has been under development for a long time, and in a slightly different iteration, previously held a site certificate that's currently in the process of being terminated. Again, you're welcome to review the notice of termination on FSEC's website. It'll give you the full color on why we're doing this. The very short version is that we as the applicant and the developer felt it was most prudent to terminate that application and start fresh. We have the time to do so. Matt will get into the project schedule in detail, but in short, Bonneville Power, who we are interconnecting our facility to, currently estimates an earliest or I shouldn't say earliest, an expected in-service date for the interconnection facilities of the fourth quarter of 2027. Well, we will work to accelerate that with Bonneville in order to just de-risk that element of the project. The project will not be built until 2027. And so we have the time to see through a new application to simplify the process, clean up the project record so it's all consolidated within a single application for site certificate and hopefully eventually a successfully granted site certificate for the facility. With that said, I'll turn it over to Matt Hazard, who again is the PM for the project, to talk through details, and look forward to answering questions later.
Thank you again for your attendance. So this is the project area map. The area kind of outlined in purple is basically our project area that we've done our surveys on and will be the area that we'll develop. Again, the project will be up to 201 megawatts of wind and solar. We may do with also what was called the BESS, which is an AC coupled BESS with the project. And that will be located on approximately 10 acres within the project area. Interconnection, we're again interconnecting with Bonneville Power Administration, and it will be on their 230 Big Eddy to Maupin line. And they'll have a new substation that they'll be building, which is called Boyd Ridge. And if you're kind of looking at the project map, if you look towards the west of it and it kind of hooks down, that's kind of the location of Boyd Ridge proposed substation. And there's an existing 230 kV line that runs through there. BPA will be permitting that and constructing that and designing it. That will all be on Bonneville Power Administration. And again, like Sam said, their proposed in-service date is late 2027. Project studies, again, the purple area that's outlined on that map is the area that we've studied and will continue to study with the relevant studies that are needed. We'll update our survey results that have been done in the past to account for new avian studies and things like that that are needed and biological studies. And then site control, again, it's 4,601 acres under lease. And the proposed land use out in the project area is mainly dryland wheat. Next slide, please. This is a little bit more of a detailed map of the project area. If you can see the yellow dots, those are proposed turbine locations. The yellow area down in the southeast corner of the area, that's our proposed solar area and battery storage. And then again, the purple area is that heads to the west. That long line of 8 miles is our proposed gen-tie route to the proposed Boyd Ridge substation. Next slide, please. This is a tentative project schedule. Again, the environmental studies will have been done in the past and will continue in through 2024. For refreshes, our agency outreach will continue all the way up until construction. As we are here today with the NOI, we've submitted for that. And with our application for site certificate will be coming up. And then late in 2025, we're suspecting or approving, going to have our approval for site certificate, and then engineering will proceed through 2026 with construction basically occurring in 2027, and then a commercial operations date in late 2027. As far as estimated homes to be powered by the project, to be around 52,000. Operational life for the project is around 30 years. Again, project acreage is around 4,601 acres. And then estimated capital expenditures around $550 million. Next slide, please. Summit Ridge Renewable Energy Facility Project will be designed to align with the Wasco County's vision, ensuring environmental care, community safety, and economic viability. We're committed to doing this right, respecting the neighbors and contributing positively to Wasco County's future. With the submittal of the NOI, the Summit Ridge Renewable Energy Facility Project will proceed through multiple permits dependent process, ensuring a timely process towards renewable energy generation. And then just on the far right, just kind of the steps that we'll be going through with the NOI, the submittal of our site certificate, and then into engineering, then eventually into construction and building permits. Next slide, please. And that's about all I had. So thank you for your time.
Okay, can you scroll up, Nancy, to slide number 16? Nope, this one. Okay, so now we have reached the public comment period. I just want to go over a couple of things. As I had noted before, the public comment period is open. It closes on May 3rd, so a month from today, at 5 p.m. There are multiple ways to submit comments. You can submit them via email. You can make comments orally. You're not limited to comment one time. You can do it again. You can also use our comment portal. We have comment cards back there on the table. If you wish to make a public comment, oral comment tonight, we do ask that you fill one out so that we have your name for the record. Again, this public comment period is not a public hearing, and participation is not required to establish standing in the contested case process. So if you can scroll back down, we'll get to the open public comment. So the way this is going to work is we are going to open it up for public comment or questions. You can ask questions too. To the people in the room, if you do want to comment or ask a question, we do ask that you come up and use the microphone so that people on the webinar can hear as well. And state your name, and the spelling of your name would be super helpful. If you're with an organization, if you can tell us the name of the organization that you are with or represent. And then once we're done with the commenters in the room, we go over to Nancy and she will tell us if there are people that want to comment on the webinar or on the phone. And we'll walk through that as well. So there might be some webinar participants that want to ask questions or make comments, but our first priority is the people that actually came to the meeting in person. And so we wanted to open it up to you. So is there anybody in the room that would like to make a comment or ask a question? Okay, please come up. Have a seat.
Speak into it.
Good evening. I'm Phil Brady and live in the Dallas, Oregon, and I am a Wasco County Commissioner. So, yep, got a couple questions. First, as a comment, I find it interesting and a good thing actually that the applicant kind of drops out of the process or takes a back seat to the process in that latter half. And why I would say that is a good thing is from the public understanding, it's it's now the ODE representing the applicant to the FSEC, and so it's not like the applicants can't push in there. Is that the way it's designed? Am I over interpreting this?
Take that one. Okay. All right. I'm going to do my best, and if I am wrong, Todd will quickly correct me. But we are support staff for the council, so our role is not to represent the applicant. It's really to give an objective review of the application and whether or not it meets council standards. And that is our role from once the application is submitted, the complete application is submitted, then our role is to do that evaluation and prepare that information for council. I guess what I would want to clarify is we're not there to represent the applicant from that process on. They have their role as well.
Would they have a role in later during the proposed order and the contested case?
When we go to the public hearing on the draft proposed order, there's an opportunity for the applicant to make comments at that public hearing after the public has commented, and they can also respond to comments that are made in that public hearing. And then if it goes to contested case, there's also a role.
Okay. Got a couple more questions. I'm not drilling here, but so as Wasco County Commissioner, we will be part of this special advisory group.
Yes.
Is it our turn to participate? Stay with that slide, please. Is it our turn to participate in the public hearing there in the middle block?
You can, but also as a special advisory group, you're in those little kind of blue-green boxes at the bottom. So we have a responsibility and a role to coordinate with you throughout that process. And you can provide us comments as you see fit. It is important though, if you have an issue that you might want to pursue through a contested case, that you make those comments on the record of the draft proposed order.
In that order, in noticing that we did get notice today, so we're on that. Okay, and following up on this was.
Can I respond a little bit to that one as well, just because I think it's important. So at the notice of intent stage, which is where we're at right now, is we're seeking public comment. And that includes agencies. So the one slide which had kind of the bullseyes with the study area and the analysis area, this is also something that, the county can be very valuable at, because you have, a good geographic information system, the maps, the issues out there. You could say, look, your sort of predetermined area for this resource is a half a mile. We think you should go beyond that. Or, as Kate said, we can either increase those or shrink those based upon information that we get on the record. But that's what's helpful for us to know what else is out there. Is there anything that we're not aware of that we could be missing? So sort of at the notice of intent stage, we're going to be like, okay, what are your land use requirements? What do we need to include in the project order from the county? Then when we're reviewing the preliminary application, we want to know from the county, they submitted all this information about the local land use ordinances. Did they get it right? Is it complete? Is it not complete? And then when we get to the point where we're writing the draft proposed order, which is functionally like a staff report, it's, we're looking at the the project against the standards. We want your input as well, particularly on the local land use ordinances, to say, not only did we have the right list of them, but are we evaluating it properly? How would you evaluate it if you were doing the review? We want your input to make sure that we're getting that right. Are we putting the right conditions on? Are we interpreting things correctly? That's where we want the county's input. You can certainly participate, kind of beyond. If you don't like what we did, if you don't agree with what we did, you can provide comments on the draft proposed order. You can participate in the contested case. But prior to that is where we really, really need you to help us.
So let me clarify, and clarify for the sake of the public too. So when you say the county, I'm thinking of two kinds of things. One is our very capable planning department and codes enforcement department. And so that and for example, if this was located some slightly different land, that would include all the scenic area codes that the county would be applying, because that's what they do. But another meaning of the county is the public, the people in the county. So I can imagine people would come to county commissioner and say, hey, this is what I think. And is that also a route that you invite people to participate, a citizen's input being come through the county, or would you prefer that to happen at the public hearing, or both?
Well, we certainly don't have any preference. So if the citizens of the county want to lobby, you as county commissioners to provide comment on the record, they are, more than willing to do that, or more than able to do that. And you can pursue those as well. They can also submit comments through our public comment timeframe.
Okay.
So that's really kind of a local, how the local process is going to work.
Good. In order to have standings at a contested case, does the issue to be contested have to be an issue that is raised previously? Or can you raise one issue and then learn something and contest something else?
Not sure I know that.
Can we do it?
Yeah.
I didn't expect it.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is it has to be raised at the draft proposed order stage. So we will provide a notice that the draft proposed order has been issued, and that time frame, which will include an open public comment time frame and a public hearing, could be here, could be in the Dalles, but in the vicinity of the project.
Okay.
Whether it's an oral comment or a written comment, that would have to be made within that comment time frame, and it's raise it or waive it. So you can't then later on try to participate in the contested case on an issue you didn't raise. It has to be raised during that time frame, and it has to be related to a council standard. So the standards that we included, and it has to be sufficiently specific enough that between the draft proposed order stage and the proposed order stage, we can evaluate it. It can't just be a placeholder. We don't think you met this. It has to be why. And that then gives us, the staff, the opportunity to make changes between the draft proposed order and the proposed order. It gives the applicant an opportunity to respond and provide new information in the record. And it also allows the council to evaluate that when they're reviewing the draft proposed order and providing feedback to staff.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
raise it or waive it at the draft proposed order stage.
I have two more questions, but this is for the team here. Okay, thank you very much. First question is, so the tie-in, the gen tie will be a 230 kilovolt line. What does that look like? Is that a wooden pole, or is that a bigger tower?
They'll either be wooden poles or steel poles.
Okay, but it's not the big ones. It's the typical ones.
No, you're not going to see like the big lattice type towers, what you're referring to.
Right.
No,
That's what I wanted to clarify. And then this is kind of a personal question if I can. Since you're working in Texas, how does Oregon's permitting process compare to Texas, which I understand is kind of like anarchy?
I guess I wouldn't characterize as Texas's permitting as anarchy. I would characterize it as sort of ultimate local control. For example, the project that we're under construction on now, it just achieved mechanical completion, meaning it looks like it's going to look. We're just sort of tightening bolts and getting ready to energize. That one was a letter from the judge that said, "Go forth and prosper." There's a reason folks tend to start their developments in Texas. When they form a new independent power producer, you tend to be able to move faster. The interconnection process with the utilities is still challenging and slow, but permitting is usually not the largest hurdle operating there. And I mean, I think with the Oregon FSEC being a standards-based, highly procedural process with a known course of action and responsibilities. Yes, it's lengthy and expensive, but ultimately I think it provides a ton of opportunity for public input, for the developers to respond to that input and work with the approving agencies and ultimately the council to hopefully get to a successful outcome. So advantages to each. I think that those are definitely bookends, though.
Yeah. Wow. So we have a lot of good protections here. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room that wants to ask a question or make a comment? And if not, we'll move on to the webinar.
And while Nancy's doing that, I'll just say we're happy, once we're kind of concluded and we're starting to wrap up, if anybody wants to stick around and ask any individual questions to Kate or myself or the applicant team, we'll be around as well to answer any questions you have.
All right, well, at this time, I don't see any hands raised, but let me just remind everyone who is participating online how they would go about raising a question or making a comment. So if you're on the webinar, you're going to go ahead and look at the bottom of the main window on the right, and there's a set of icons. Click on the participants, and that will raise your hand. There's a little hand icon, so that will raise your hand. When you are finished, you can click it again to lower your hand. If you're on the phone, you're going to press *3 on your keypad to raise your hand. And when you're finished commenting, go ahead and press *3 again to lower your hand. I do not see anyone. Small crowd.
Okay, we're going to wait just a minute just to see if anybody wants to raise their hand on the webinar. I'll make another round of calls if anybody wants to ask a question or make a comment. Anyone?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. So why don't you go to the next slide? I just wanted to show this next slide. We have an amazing website. There is a lot of information on there. We have a project webpage. We have information about our standards. We have a comment portal where you can go online and submit your comments on any siting project that's open for public comment. All of this information is also available on the handouts that are on the table out there. So if I didn't hand you a copy of the notice or offer you any of the handouts, I would say feel free to grab them on the way out. But I really encourage people, if you're interested in this process or this proposed facility, that you familiarize yourself with our very useful links and web-based resources, because there's a ton of good information there. And the project webpage is where we post and update along the process. And I think the one last thing that I forgot to mention that I remembered while people were talking was that the applicant has 2 years to submit a preliminary application. So the notice of intent was filed in January of this year, so they have 2 years. So in January 25th of 2026, they have that long to submit an application. So people can forget, wander off, forget about this project, and then it will come back when the application, the preliminary application gets submitted. And that's why it's good to familiarize yourself with our webpage, our facilities, the click dimensions that Amrit was signing people up for. We'll give you an email notification. If you have email, you want to be notified on this or any other facility, it will update you. Like when we issue a notice or something new happens, it'll, when something official comes out on a facility, it will come out on that click dimensions. Will also be posted and updated and made available on the project webpage. If you want to see a full copy of the notice of intent or any other documents that get posted there, just go to the webpage. You can find it, download it, open it. It's a PDF document. Should be, you can review it online or you can download it and save it for your own future reference. So I just wanted to be clear that we have a lot of available resources. And I guess any hands up? No? Anyone? Okay. Feel like that guy in Ferris Bueller. Okay. So, like I said, we just have a wealth of resources, click dimensions. Like I said, if we didn't sign you up on the way in, we're more than happy to sign you up on the way out if you're interested. And then other than that, I just want to thank everybody for coming to our meeting. It's really important to us that the public come, that we have an opportunity to tell you about what we do and why we do it and what we do for the state and the Energy Facility Siting Council, and to hear from the public about this NOI and our process. So I really appreciate everybody for taking the time to be here, including Council Member Pryor.
Well, thank you all, because this is how we learn about what's important to your community. So thank you for coming in.
All right, and with that, I am going to say if there's no one raising their hand on the webinar, we're going to close this meeting. It is now officially closed. But we're going to be here packing up, and if anybody wants to ask us any questions or follow up on anything we covered tonight, please feel free to come talk to us. Yeah.
And are these slides posted on the web?
Oh, thank you, Anne. That is a great question. This presentation is recorded. It will be posted on the web. The slideshow will be posted on the web, so you can either listen to what the oral presentation part was, you can go back and look at the slides. But yes, this will be posted. Probably on Monday. Maybe Friday. All right, well, thank you.